The courtroom was silent. So quiet, you could hear the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the ticking of an old clock on the wall. Judge Daniel Hayes sat tall behind the bench, his eyes fixed on the defendant being led in by 2 guards. But the moment his gaze fell on the man in handcuffs, Daniel felt the world tilt beneath him. His breath caught in his throat, his heart thudded against his chest, and suddenly, the courtroom wasn't just a place of justice anymore. It was a window back into his own childhood. The man standing before him, disheveled and broken, was not just another defendant. He was Michael Carter, his childhood best friend. They had once shared laughter, dreams, and secrets under the summer sun. They had once vowed to stand by each other forever. And yet, here they were, decades later, one of them in the robe of a respected judge, the other in shackles, accused of a crime that could end his life as he knew it. The air grew heavy with unspoken memories, and Daniel struggled to keep his composure. Before we dive deeper into this story of fate, redemption, and shocking truths, pause for a second. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. These stories are meant to touch lives, and your support keeps them alive. Daniel forced himself to remain steady as the trial began, but inside, his mind raced. Memories rushed back. 2 little boys fishing by the creek, stealing apples from the neighbor's yard, dreaming about who they'd grow up to be. He remembered Michael's laugh, a kind of laughter that could light up even the darkest day. But now Michael's face was aged and tired, his eyes carrying a weight that spoke of battles Daniel had never seen. The charges against Michael were severe: armed robbery, assault, and resisting arrest. The prosecutor painted him as a dangerous man, someone beyond redemption. But Daniel couldn't shake the image of the boy who once stood beside him through thick and thin. He knew he had to stay impartial, yet his heart ached with every word spoken against his old friend. As the evidence piled up, Daniel learned more about the man Michael had become. After high school, their paths had diverged. Daniel had joined the army, serving years overseas, enduring loss, blood, and hardship before finally returning home and pursuing law. Michael, on the other hand, had stayed behind, struggling with poverty and loss. His parents had died young, he had no real support, and the streets had become his cruel teacher. Addiction found him, bad company swallowed him, and life had beaten him down until he was a shadow of the boy Daniel once knew. But there was something in Michael's eyes, even as he sat there in chains, something Daniel recognized. Beneath the pain and shame, there was still that spark of the boy he once loved like a brother. Over the following days, Daniel battled silently within himself. Every witness testimony felt like a dagger, not only against Michael, but against the bond they once shared. He could not interfere. He could not show bias, yet every fiber of his being longed to reach out, to ask Michael what had happened, to tell him that someone still cared. Outside the courtroom, Daniel's own life was far from easy. He was a single father raising a 10-year-old daughter, Emily. His wife had died years earlier, and Emily was his anchor, his reason to keep moving forward. She was the only family he had left, and though he carried the scars of war, he never let her see his pain. To her he was a hero, strong and unshakable. But inside, he knew how fragile life could be. One evening, after an exhausting day of testimony, Daniel sat at the dinner table with Emily. She looked up at him with innocent eyes, and asked why he seemed sad. He couldn't tell her everything, but he said softly, "Sometimes, we see people we once cared about go through very hard times. And it hurts because we remember who they used to be." Emily tilted her head, thought for a moment, and then said words that pierced his heart. "Maybe they just need someone to believe in them again, Daddy." Those words unechoed in his mind as the trial reached its climax. The jury deliberated, the prosecutor pushed for maximum punishment, and Michael's defense attorney, underfunded and overwhelmed, barely managed to argue for leniency. On the final day, before sentencing, Michael was given the chance to speak, His voice trembled as he addressed the court. He admitted his mistakes, his failures, and his battles with addiction. He spoke of how he had lost everyone who ever cared for him. And then, with tears streaming down his face, he said, "The truth is, Your Honor, I wasn't always this way. I used to dream of being better. I used to believe in myself. But somewhere along the road, I lost that kid I used to be. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wish someone remembered that I wasn't always a monster." Daniel's throat tightened. He did remember. He remembered more than Michael could ever know. And at that moment, Daniel realized that justice wasn't just about punishment. It was also about mercy. When the time came to deliver his judgment, Daniel's voice was steady but filled with emotion. He acknowledged the seriousness of Michael's crimes, but also recognized the possibility of redemption. Instead of sending him away for decades, he ordered a rehabilitation program, community service, and mandatory counseling. It was not an escape from responsibility, but it was a chance for Michael to rebuild his life. The courtroom buzzed with shock. People whispered, some outraged, some moved. But Daniel stood firm. He believed in justice, and justice, in his eyes, meant giving a broken man the possibility to heal. After the hearing, as Michael was being escorted out, their eyes met. For a brief second, it was not judge and defendant. It was Daniel and Michael, two boys again, bound by a friendship that time and pain could never truly erase. Michael mouthed the words, "Thank you." And though Daniel said nothing, his heart answered, "Don't waste this chance." Weeks later, Daniel received a letter. It was from Michael. He wrote about his time in rehab, about how hard it was, about how every day felt like climbing a mountain. But he also wrote about hope. He wrote about remembering the boy he once was, about finding strength in the knowledge that someone still believed in him. He promised to fight. For himself, for his future, and for the memory of their friendship. Daniel folded the letter carefully and placed it in a small box where he kept his most cherished possessions. Old medals, pictures of Emily, and now, a letter from the boy who was once his brother. Life moved forward, and Daniel continued raising his daughter, serving as a judge, and carrying the burdens of his past. But he knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes, justice wasn't about breaking people down. Sometimes, it was about lifting them up when the world had already done enough to destroy them. And somewhere, far from the shadows of addiction and despair, Michael Carter was taking his first steps toward becoming whole again. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in second chances and the power of compassion, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Every act of kindness matters, and sometimes, just believing in someone can change their entire life.